episode of Video Game Logic. Today's episode was recorded on July the 23rd, 2019. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, spending time... time fly. I don't fuck it. Just say
caffeine rage. Well, you kind of paused there, so I thought, okay, well, you're not doing it this time around.
I did. Normally, I think about it beforehand. We've spent so long talking and meandering that it just kind of dawned on me that I didn't have one prepared. So I fucked it up. It's fine.
It's all right. We'll do it live. I'll wait.
On today's show, we will, of course, be discussing the games that we have played. iNcontroL dies at age 33. Nintendo is hit with a class action lawsuit over Switch JoyCon drifting issue. Grand Theft Auto 5 update adds a casino that can be played with real money. Rare talks Sea of Thieves upcoming pets and microtransaction store. We will discuss a couple of things in Community Corner and have a Steam Discovery Queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello, Rage.
Hello.
As if we haven't been talking for over an hour. Well over an hour.
Also, you're not going full Trebek and upholding the illusion that we just started up the recording and about 5 seconds after the call.
Oh, I always break that illusion. Always break it. I'm never honest. I'm always like, so we've been talking for a long time now. Or I'll be like, so Rach, how are you? As if we haven't been talking for the last X number of minutes. To the audience, though, we've only been talking for approximately a minute to a minute and a half, despite the fact that the recording is already at 14 minutes, just about. Not quite, but just about. And that Craig has been running for probably close to half an hour now, and we were chatting for another half an hour before that.
Well, don't forget Craig thinking, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I don't,
Craig, I
don't
he's
get
used to that by now.
I don't get paid enough for this.
He doesn't get paid at all.
Exactly.
So, yeah. What's shaking, Bacon?
Not much. Had kind of a relaxing weekend watching a movie, so... which,
nice.
Considering the length of the movie, that doesn't sound... Oh, well, I watched a movie for the weekend, but, a nearly 3-hour movie, that's pretty much an evening.
Watch, like, The 10th Kingdom. I think that movie is, like, 11 or 12 hours long.
Why don't I just watch something good and fire Lord of the Rings again?
That's true. That'll get you, like, if you watch all the extended cuts, that'll get you, like, 18 hours.
That's like a week.
Yeah. I didn't do anything Saturday except kind of die. I fought off being ill all week, and then Saturday my body just went, okay, you're home. You don't have to work.
We're dead now.
Go to sleep now. So, but I did play a couple of new games to discuss and get farther in some others that I won't be talking about now, but, the fabled X4 in-game discussion inches ever closer.
Also,
maybe like 6 weeks from now.
Okay, 6 weeks, so I should make sure I have the cards of utter boredom all set. Got it.
Yeah, maybe in 6 weeks I'll have corrected the economy, which I broke.
Whoops.
Nah,
I didn't realize you were elected president.
Yeah. No, I fixed a lot of things. Like, I discovered some issues with how it does things, but I'm not gonna drift off into that conversation now. I've learned how to exploit the economy, but in a positive way that makes the game just generally run better. So,
better for the game or better for you?
Better for the game. You kind of hit a certain point in all of these games that if you just keep playing, you just start to kind of steamroll money, and then you just go, fuck off and do whatever you want. I'm kind of at that point, starting to get to that point.
Yeah, most of my, really last 2 weeks since we didn't talk games last week has been playing things that, I can't really talk much more about because, how much more can we talk about Forza?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Warframe and, Game Club, of course, which honestly hasn't been as much as I should because, getting through the start of a Final Fantasy game is tough. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. But why don't you talk about what you did play? You've been holding on to this one for a while now.
Oh, yeah. A couple weeks ago, well, actually, I guess 3 weeks ago, we had an article talking about the new Dr. Mario mobile game. And I thought, let's try it. Let's see if it's bad as all the articles say it is. And I gotta say, no, it's, well, at least as far as I got, which was only to the second world before I couldn't stomach the game anymore. It wasn't as bad as the articles make it out to be. That doesn't make it good, but it's not as bad. So all the articles that we had that we're talking about this game, we're talking about how you couldn't play for more than like 5 or 10 minutes and then watch an ad or have to buy in for stamina. I never got to that point, mostly because there were so many other things that utterly pissed me off about the game that I just couldn't get that far. Mostly it came down to pacing. And I know you're thinking, pacing in a Dr. Mario game? Well, it's the fact that at the start of every single level, there's a good 10 or so seconds of forced animation of countdowns and flashing on the screen, to make you, get all those endorphins going from all the flashing colors and sounds. That got really old really quickly to me. It just slowed down the game so much, on top of having, of course, a stamina system. That, of course, because this is a Nintendo game with a stamina system, it's in half an hour per life, and you only get 5 lives. So, yeah, you could already see where some of this is going, huh?
Think so.
So, let's actually talk about the gameplay. The gameplay, I actually had to go back and look at some of the old Dr. Mario games, because I never really played Dr. Mario. It wasn't really my thing. I didn't really play a lot of the match 3 genre, for lack of a better term, before mobile. I think the only one that I really played of any note back in the day when Dr. Mario was a thing, or the thing, I guess I should say, which I realized Dr. Mario, technically not match 3, but work with me here, would be Columns, which is a similar idea, but it's essentially packaged in a different format, where Dr. Mario, you're controlling essentially always a 2-color, pill that can be broken apart, and the whole objective is to remove viruses from the screen. Well, in this, they kind of switch things up. For one, instead of coming from the top, you're coming up from the bottom, which doesn't sound that different, but with the way they handle the controls on this, it gets rather frustrating. So you have the ability to essentially move the pill wherever you want. So you could drag it onto the screen and then release it and pretty much go full Tetris and just let it fall. Or you could drag it around. Well, you can only drag it up the screen. So if it goes like one roll past where you want it to, well, too bad. You're going to have to figure out somewhere else to put that now. And there was a lot of times that it would jump to a place that I didn't intend, because they have this mechanic of, as long as the pill could fit somewhere, you're able to drag it there, because, touchscreens.
Right.
That I'm not sure if if the touch interface was a little bit too sensitive, if I just have really fat fingers. Okay, I also have really fat fingers. But it felt highly imprecise, to the point where any level that required any sort of speed, just forget about it. It was going to end up pissing me off more than anything else. And this was on top of levels that change up the actual goal of the game. So typically you're removing viruses, but sometimes you have to essentially, it's a survival mode, and things will fall down from the top. Well, in a couple of those modes that came up, there were indestructible blocks. And I had one time I lost because the drag interface said, okay, well, you moved your thing one row up, so it's going to stick the capsule here and you can't move it. Well, it happened to be right where I had, I was going to lose in a couple of turns because that was going to come off the bottom of the screen. Great. Lovely, right?
Okay.
There's another mode where you have to find hidden coins and blocks, or constantly match match 3 against these blocks to get coins out of them. But there were more blocks than there were coins, so some of the blocks didn't have coins, so it required a fail in order to go back and figure out, okay, this section of the level doesn't have coins. I need to focus on this section, which comes into play with the stamina system. Now, there's a little bit of a double-edged sword with the stamina system in this, which I still need to go back to more of the gameplay, but the stamina system has it where when you start a level, you're burning a life instead of how pretty much every other match 3 game with a stamina system works, where when you lose, you burn a life. And you're thinking, well, what's the big deal there, right? Well, the difference in that is that the only time you get that life back is when you first complete a level. So, it's not like, these match 3 games, they, suggest, hey, maybe you should go back and play previous levels to get a better score. Oh, wait, they do, don't they? Well, if you go back to a previous level, and even if you beat your score, at least the last time I played, you don't get that life back. So that's a half an hour timer. Enjoy, right?
Yeah. So if you're it punishes you for being a completionist.
Oh, yeah. It punishes you for being a completionist because that's how you, or that's one way to generate coins, which goes into the gacha store. Right?
Yeah.
You start off with a choice between playing Dr. Mario, Dr. Bowser, or Dr. Peach, which they talk about. The viruses show up, and these 3 put aside their differences and put on their lab coats. Okay, I can understand Mario, having a lab coat somewhere up his ass because he is all professions, but Peach and Bowser, they have lab coats since when? I know. There's probably something in Mario lore, right?
Possibly, but not that I'm aware of. Granted, I'm not the arbiter of Mario lore, so.
What, you're not? Damn, I'm gonna have to remove that from your title. But in order to unlock additional characters which have different power-ups, which as you progress through a level, you have your power meter or your skill meter eventually ticks up. And like Bowser removes 2 random rows, Peach removes a random column, and Mario removes the lowest row, and that's the starters. And other ones have different abilities. Well, as far as I could tell, pretty much all the different characters have the same appearance rate of 2% and some change. So there's the gacha for your actual playable characters, and there's, I think, like 10 or 12 of them. Pretty much all the staple ones, right? Luigi, Daisy, pretty much your standard cast. And then you had staff, which essentially gives you a small bonus, and as you get duplicates of them, they level up. So I got a Goomba for my first staff member, who gave me a whole 1% score bonus, right?
Wow!
But if
much score.
But if I hit that 2% again, I'm not sure if it levels up right away or if it's Clash Royale style where each level requires more and more of the same duplicate. But yeah, it's a very middling bonus, but at the same time, that bonus, or at least this score bonus one, is what dictates the final star level, because the star level, your completion 1 out of 3 star, or out of 3 stars, I should say, for your final score, is based off, well, like I said, your final score, and that is a combination of how many capsules you have left, and other things that are on the screen. So, your leftover capsules are, I think, a negative multiplier. So, yeah, getting those could be very helpful for getting 3 stars. I had another that I can't think of the name of that had a whole 10% chance to remove one virus from the screen. I think I saw it happen twice. Oh, but yeah, this is a very, very, very mediocre match 3. And it's just skinned with Dr. Mario with a few very basic gameplay elements changed off of your typical columns Tetris style match 3. But the thing that really got people up in arms about it is that, hey, this is a Mario licensed game. We expect better from Nintendo. I'm not sure why they expect better from Nintendo, because history shows that Nintendo is going to screw you over when it comes to mobile titles. But it's not as bad as reports say. That doesn't make it good, though, right?
Right.
Trying to think of anything else in particular. I mean, it was just boring. And it's not, a dislike of match 3, because, match 3 can be fun to pick up and play. It's just between the controls not feeling quite right. The fact that they actually hold back on the tutorial. And I know that's like, well, why is holding back on the tutorial a bad thing? Because half the time these tutorials are, do you know you could touch the screen in order to drop something onto the... But the mechanic of moving a capsule into an empty space big enough for a capsule actually wasn't explained till World 2. But there were levels in World 1 that if you didn't use that mechanic, which I accidentally did a couple times that I didn't know about yet, there was no way to 3-star them as far as I could tell. And also, the game was highly randomized because, it is a match 3 game. So, of course, there's a random element. There's that, luck factor. And there were times that I got utterly boned by the RNG. There was one time I was set up to win, and I needed a yellow capsule, or not even a fully yellow capsule, a half a capsule. And I had a choice of 3 colors. Out of 5 capsules, I did not see a single yellow. I mean, a little ridiculous, huh?
Yeah.
But it's just, like I said, a very mediocre game, and it's just, a lot of people rate it over the coals simply because it's a Mario game. And yes, I do agree that Nintendo should be held to a certain standard, but it's just a bad game in general. It's not a bad Mario game. Or I shouldn't say it's a bad game. It's a mediocre game. It just didn't deserve the press. In either a positive or a negative way.
Yeah, we were somewhere in our pre-show conversation we were talking about people's biases. And you can have a bias for something, you can have a bias against something. This could be a case of people's preconceived notions or ideas about what Nintendo should be, letting that sort of drag this down.
I guess I should call it by its proper name, Dr. Mario World. Which the fact that it's running at 3.8 on Google Play actually says quite a bit, huh?
Yeah.
Typically, if something's below a 4, it's pure cancer.
Typically on, the modern rating scale, air quotes. But, yeah, I like Dr. Mario. My mom really liked Dr. Mario. So when I was a kid and we had our Super Nintendo, that was one of the games that she would play with me. And so Dr. Mario is one of the older Dr. Mario, I guess, has got a special place in my gaming heart. But I had no intention of trying the mobile version, because if I'm going to play it, I'm just going to play an emulated version.
I figured, after seeing all the reports, I thought, this can't be quite right. And now it was a little bit sensationalist, at least as far as I got. Because I was able to play, for the most part, uninterrupted by the stamina system for at least the first world. Yeah. But it's just so sluggish. I will say that the multiplayer version, or the multiplayer, is interesting, but it's clear that these people have life Dr. Mario to the point that me entering Rivals is a bad time, because it's essentially Dr. Mario's speed running, and to me this type of game really requires, it's almost chess like, sitting there and thinking about it, and taking it into a speed area just it wasn't as much fun for me.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm overthinking, I don't know. But it also is a case of a little bit of concern with the characters, because as they level up, they get better powers. So if you run into somebody that's like, level 10 Mario, they're, may be able to just screw you over. And also, before you start every level, there's also the ability to... Oh, that's one thing that pissed me off. I nearly forgot about that. Oh, I should have reinstalled the game just to play it again. Well, first of all, before you start the level, you have a choice of, power-ups to bring into the level. You can only get 2 with the free currency. Everything else is the premium currency. But the big one is, what is one thing that pretty much every match 3 has? It's those, if you're in trouble, you could spend a little bit of in-game currency to get a power-up to be able to, try to help you out, right?
Right.
That's a pretty common one. This is all premium currency. All of it. Including going in with more capsules, going in and destroying a block. There's one power-up that just clears all, essentially just, well, they call it useless capsules, but the ones that are still on the screen. It's all premium currency. It's literally pay to win. And they kind of get you used to the idea by giving you that first one free. The first hit's free.
Right.
And I got into a level where I was having trouble. It was one of those that there's some levels on this that feels very particular. Like if you don't get the perfect draws on the capsules, you're going to have a very, very tough time winning. And I was having that on one of the levels. I guess that's why I was able to complete the first world without really having trouble with the stamina timer, because I just got frustrated with the game at times because RNG was just not there. But I was set up where, okay, I could win if I could just clear my capsules, because I had just one that got drugged to the wrong place, because I didn't realize that mechanic was there. So I was flicked a capsule, and it's like, oh, you want to go there? Okay, and just warp across the screen. So I went to I had enough money to be able to. I figured, okay, I'll just buy the clear capsules with the in-game currency and be done with it. And it popped up the diamonds, which is the premium currency. And I just stopped and looked at it like, really? That's where you're going with this? Ugh. Yeah, there's actually a lot of negative reviews, which is honestly a little surprising. But, yeah. It's not as bad as they say it was, but it's not a good game to play if you have any modicum of being frustrated with mobile bullshit.
Right. Okay.
And I went a lot longer with that than I envisioned.
This makes you want to play Dr. Mario, but not the mobile version. It makes you want to go hop on the Raspberry Pi and play some Dr. Mario on that.
Well, it should be on there.
Yeah, it is. I've played it on there before. I'd take that on my trip. We could all sit in the hotel room and play classic Nintendo games. It's not very big, although I don't know if the TV in the hotel is going to have, like, what kind of TV it's going to be. It'll probably have an HDMI port. Anyways, I don't want to get too off on that tangent. I've got 2 games that I played this week. Both of them fairly quick. So the first one is called Survive on Raft, which sounds shitty. And if you go look at it on Steam, it looks shitty. but it's not terrible. I
So
don't
does
know
it
if
smell shitty?
No, I don't know if, like, looking at it, I was expecting it to be so bad that I was pleasantly surprised that it's a fairly functional, decent survival crafting game with what in my mind is a little bit more of a sort of a, I guess, unique gimmick or something like that. But it is a survival crafting game. The, conceit is like you're on a raft after a shipwreck. Well, I say raft. You're on a big plank of wood after a ship crashed, and you've got a couple of basic tools. You got like a hook and some water, like some bottled water, and some food. And you have to...
And the corpse of Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, you pushed him off the door and fed him to the giant shark to buy yourself some time. So... But yeah, you start in the water, and there's all of this, flotsam and jetsam around, and you've got your little hook thing, and it's on a rope, and you throw the hook to grab stuff in the water and pull it in towards you, and that's where you collect your crafting materials. And then that point of it is pretty standard. You collect the materials, you craft things to make your raft larger, more planks of wood. As you level up, which you level up just by essentially performing actions, collecting things, building, surviving a day, gives you just sort of a flat XP payout. And as you level up, you unlock more things. You get a fishing rod where you can fish, obviously. You unlock some more tools, more designs, and parts to create a larger raft or a larger ship. And it kind of starts to feel like Waterworld after a little bit, because you get a larger thing.
That doesn't bode well, right?
You got an indoor area, maybe something that's raised so the shark can't get you, like up on stilts or something like that. You've got like a little fishing hole in the middle of your ship so that you can just fish like right there. You can craft... I don't know, like some kind of water purifying station. Like, I get the principle behind it. I don't exactly know what it's called, because it just says fresh water maker is like what it's called. The English is, I won't say strong in this, but definitely present. So, it's called like fresh water maker, but it's essentially kind of like would it be a sump? Like a barrel that you light a fire underneath, and then that creates vapor, and you collect the vapor so that you purify the water. Yeah, I guess that would be a distiller. Thanks. And then you create like a raised cooking spit, so that you can have a fire on your boat but not burn it down. So that you can make food and continue to eat. There's other stuff too. There's some decorative stuff you can get, like rugs and tapestries and wall decorations. You can do things like torches so you can have light at nighttime, which helps keep the giant shark away. So there are giant sharks swimming around in the water, and if you jump in the water, it's basically instant death. If you jump in or if you fall in, they will come and they will snatch you up and they will eat you. And every night, except for the first night, they will come and they will attack your raft and destroy pieces of it until either the sun comes up and they run away, or you attack them. There's a couple of weapons you can attack, but the best one is like a spear you can make. You like stab them in the eyes, and then they run away. But they'll come and they'll destroy pieces of your raft until you fight them off, or the sun comes up, or they get bored, or whatever the timer is for that.
Or you punch them in the nose.
I don't think that you can kill the shark. At least I haven't been able to. Like, it always runs away. I don't know if you can actually kill any of the sharks, but that's not too bad. When the raft gets a little bit bigger, that can be a little bit more difficult if you are like on one side and you got to go fight the shark on the other one, and you're just a little too slow and he bites off a piece of your raft and you're like, well, fuck. I just built that. As your raft grows larger, it sort of becomes easier to collect materials because the stuff just runs into it and then gets sort of pulled along with you. So you can just walk up to it and grab it instead of having to use like the hook to throw it out in the water and pull stuff in. But the actual collecting materials part, honestly, gets a little monotonous after a while, because once the initial like, oh, this is a neat gimmick kind of wears off to it, it just gets boring. but building torches or creating torches to have at night seems to keep the shark away a lot more of the time. And if
don't
you die,
you know sharks are afraid of fire? Apparently.
If you die, it just respawns you back on your raft, but you lose all the stuff that you had on your body. If you somehow manage to die in such a way that leaves it on your raft, you can pick it back up. But if it's in the water, it seems to be gone forever. And then you can grow, you can get these little grow boxes, and you can create compost and grow coconut trees. I don't know if there's other things that you can grow. Coconut tree doesn't really seem like a sustainable thing to have on a boat, but that's what you get. And then you can get coconuts from that, which are food that doesn't require cooking. You just use a mallet to break them open, and then you can eat the coconut.
I would humbly, disagree about coconuts being food.
I mean, I also dislike coconut in real life, but it was like, well, I can eat this coconut or I can die. I would probably eat the coconut.
There's a perfectly good shark down there. Just choke it with the coconut.
Just pelt it with coconuts until it dies. And that's pretty much it. I mean, the goal is to just survive as many nights as you can. It's fairly simple control-wise. There's a tutorial. You don't really need it. I don't know if there's plans to develop it farther. It doesn't say it's in early access, so who knows? But as a nifty little thing for a couple of bucks on sale, I think it's worth it. It's $5 on its own right now. I don't know if it's worth $5. I've gotten about an hour's worth of enjoyment out of it. I might get another hour just to play around with some of the other tools that I haven't gotten to yet. But beyond that, I don't really think it has much else unless they update it. It basically can run on a potato. So if you've got a low-end machine or a laptop that you're just looking for something to have, this is a possibility. But, for what they're asking for it, if they were like, oh, $20 for this game, it's not worth it. But $5, maybe, $1, $2 on a Steam sale, perfect. It's just not all that bad. Which I was really surprised. I was looking forward to playing it and making fun of it because it was garbage. But I was like, well, this looks like garbage, but it's not terrible. So pleasantly surprised. The other game that I played is called Traffix, Traffix. Traffix is a fairly simple puzzle game where you are a traffic control person and you're in charge of traffic lights. And there's traffic that is moving and other things that could be moving. Some of the levels have trains, or for some reason the roads cross airfields or
I would guess it would be service highways on an airport or service roads. Possibly. But, things like that. There's intersections, roundabouts, exchanges, and you're controlling, some traffic flow. And they start out relatively easy. You're just controlling one line of traffic as it crosses, a one-way highway or one-way street. And then it's, 2 lanes, one going each direction. And then you're controlling 2 when you get a roundabout and cars come at different intervals. Everything moves at the same speed, but there are sports cars and vans and semi-trucks. There's also emergency vehicles. So the way that works is you're controlling the traffic, and in order to get, the 3 stars for doing everything perfectly, you have to have no traffic accidents, and you can't make anyone mad. There's no time limit per se, but if you make people wait for too long, they get mad, and then it counts against you. But emergency vehicles will only wait until the driver gets mad, and then they just drive away, ignoring your traffic signal. So you have to be careful with those guys. The first few levels are extremely easy. It's teaching you basic concepts through gameplay. There's a tutorial that teaches you how it works. And this is a port of a mobile game. Yeah, I was going to say, this looks very mobile-ish.
Yeah, it's a port of a mobile game. And they haven't even changed it from tap or, tap and swipe.
Oh, one
which
of
is
my
a little
psychotic
annoying,
fucking
but-
hatreds.
Yeah, but essentially you just click on the traffic light to let a single car through, and then you can click and hold or double click, and then that will leave it open and traffic flows through. If you click and hold, traffic will flow through until you release, and then if you double click, you have to come back and click it again to stop the flow of traffic. And that's it. Like, that's it for controls. If there's a traffic accident, you have to clear the accident by clicking on the cars, or it says swiping. I don't know if you can click and drag to remove them.
No, you pick up and shake the computer.
I've had a couple of traffic accidents on the 4th or 5th level, but the first few levels I didn't have any at all. And then it introduces you to the complexity of the game very slowly. Like I said, it starts out and you've got one lane. You're controlling one lane of traffic that is going in one direction that crosses a street that is a one-lane street going one direction, and it builds up from there. So then you've got like a cross street that you have to send traffic through, and then a roundabout, and then traffic exchange on think like an on-ramp onto an interstate. And sometimes the cars are going into one lane, and sometimes they're going into the other one. And it indicates all this to you. And then it starts to get really complicated. Like there's an interchange with multi-level highways that kind of like block things out. And I really struggled with that one at first because my brain just couldn't wrap my head around like, okay, so at this point they cross because game. And so I have to be careful.
Video game logic?
Right, because of video game logic. Ding. Like, I have to be careful with this intersection because they can crash into each other. But this one, even though it looks exactly the same, they don't actually cross because the highways are at different levels. And that screwed me up for a little bit. And then, like I said, as you keep going, it gets more and more difficult. You'll have trains that come through.
So I'm guessing, like, the color gradient dictates their level, or is it just being pretty?
No, that's just to be pretty. It's a very minimalistic art style, as you can see. The soundtrack is a lot of sort of funk and jazz, very calming, very soothing. Soundtrack is actually excellent for this type of game.
Well, why do you just pipe the music into the cars so whenever they're waiting, they don't get angry?
That would be nice. Wish I could do that. But that's all there is to it. There's, I don't know how many levels there are, 20, 25 levels. And then there's a chaos mode, which chaos mode is all police vehicles, or all emergency vehicles, rather. So everything that you have to control is an emergency vehicle. So that just forces you to keep up with your time a little better. But otherwise, it's a very simple, very relaxed puzzle game.
Wait, that's not how Roundabout works. Sorry, I'm looking at the trailer, and they have a roundabout with 5 different street lights. That's not how a roundabout works.
I'm looking for it on the trailer.
It's towards the end. It's at 35 seconds.
Oh, I see that.
Matter of fact, that's kind of the opposite of how a roundabout works.
Yeah. I haven't actually played that level yet. I don't know where it is.
No, spoilers.
But yeah, the game on Steam is $5. On mobile, it's $3. So there's a little bit of a PC tax.
Yeah, I can't really find it very easily on mobile. I'm not sure if it's which store it's on, or
I
if
looked
it's
up
on
on the
different...
Play Store.
Is it a different name?
No, it's Traffix.
Maybe Google is failing me, which is possible.
Traffix.
Yeah, I don't see it using that name. Copy and pasting from the Steam store.
You're offline on Steam right now. I'll send it to you on Discord. There you go. But yeah, $3 on mobile.
Huh, weird. I was searching for it, but oh well.
$5 on PC. If you like this sort of puzzle game, I think it's probably worth $5 on PC. But it definitely feels much more suited to mobile. Maybe if you had a tablet-style PC that had a touchscreen, or even a touchscreen monitor that you didn't feel weird like reaching out and poking, it would work well. But with the mouse, it can get a little
Fiddly.
wonky a little fiddly. But it's still a good, solid game. So, if you're into this sort of thing, it might be worth it to you. I think it's definitely worth it at the $3 mark on mobile devices. So maybe go for it there instead of getting it on PC.
Especially if you have a tablet.
Yeah. Overall, though, really good game. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I decided to, sit down with it for a little bit and try it out. I'm probably going to play it some more this weekend while I am on my trip sitting in the hotel at night. Just because it's something that will run on my potato laptop.
Oh, GLaDOS?
Indeed. But, that's it for games we have played this week.
In last week.
That's my 2. Well, yeah, in last week.
But not the week before.
No, not the week before. So, are we ready to move on to the news?
Yeah, I think so.
So, our first news topic is a pretty big downer. Geoff iNcontroL Robinson dies at age 33. This happened over the weekend. Actually, I think he officially passed away on Friday, and then it was announced over the weekend that it happened. There are very few details. Basically, the article that we've got just is showing you where the tweet was that announced what happened.
Yeah, which his Twitter feed has updated to say that he died due to a blood clot in his lung.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. To offer some solace in this time of grief, will you learn that Geoff passed away quickly and painlessly from a blood clot in his lungs. That was the latest tweet on the 22nd. So yesterday, Monday.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was announced on Sunday. So.
Yeah. Initially, all it said that he passed away from a sudden illness, which I guess blood clot in your lungs could.
Yeah, and there were some people
that.
Doing some detective work saying that he had a tattoo that got infected and he had an abscess. So there were people saying, well, maybe it was related to that, but it looks like it wasn't. Or potentially not.
Yeah. I don't know if an abscess can actually cause a blood clot or not. I don't know. Regardless, what specifically led to the blood clot or whatever, we might find out later.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally up to the friends and family if they wish to share that information. But, we were chatting, was it Sunday night?
Yeah.
And we were just chatting, and I was going through Reddit, and I saw this, and I was like, who is iNcontroL? And we talked about it for...
His name sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I'm most familiar with him, or pretty much 100% familiar with him, just through his repeated appearances on the Co-Optional podcast over the years.
Yeah, I knew him a little bit more because whenever I catch it on, I'll watch some WCS, which he was an announcer on, and before that he was a StarCraft player. So he would I recognize the name from there, but also him and Total Biscuit for quite a while did some co-streaming and would cast StarCraft. So, and they had a good chemistry together going back and forth. So, yeah.
Yeah. He actually had a very recent appearance on the Co-Optional. I can't remember if it was... I can look it up real quick. It was either last week's episode or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's going to be a little odd when I catch up to that.
Yeah, viewing the tweets from the rest of the Co-Optional crew, it was 2 weeks ago. So yeah, they were like, hey, we just talked to him. It's just crazy. It's like a nightmare. Stuff like that. Which, losing anybody that you're close to suddenly definitely feels that way. It's a bad dream you can't wake up from.
And
so,
Yeah, it sounds like he, assuming that this is, the blood clot is what happened and not caused by underlying condition. There's some things that could just, kill you without really any warning, which is a little scary when you think about it, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of shit that can just, get you on a moment's notice like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we weren't super familiar with him, we know that we've got an audience of people who might have been familiar. I'm going to sort of drop my therapist stuff in here. If you were someone who is a big fan of his and you're feeling grief or sadness, anxiety, anything caused by hearing about his loss, don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you feel the need to do so, I'd be happy to talk to you and just see if I can help you process through some of that. Just because you may have not known them personally doesn't mean that the grief for their loss isn't, any less real. So if you find yourself struggling with that, either because you just heard the news on the show or you heard about it earlier in the week and you just, haven't been sure how to process it, please don't hesitate to contact me. Anything that we talk about will be completely confidential, just as if you were a paying client. So,
what? They're not a paying client?
Well, you'll have to pay me, in Steam trading cards.
Yeah, very reasonable rates.
Yeah. But, yeah, like I just said, in all seriousness, feel free to, if you need some support or just someone to talk to and process through it, don't hesitate to contact me. I am here to help. But I don't particularly have anything else to add to this. We just knew that we couldn't really completely ignore it. So
yeah, it was too big a news to really not bring up at the very least.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the top news of the week on Reddit, so yeah. Or at least, no, sorry. It looks like it got passed up at the last second. About the Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man. Sorry. All right. Are you ready to move on to our next news topic of the evening?
Yes. Let's talk about something a lot, lighter and like class action lawsuits, right?
Indeed. Nintendo is hit with a class action lawsuit over the Switch JoyCon drifting issue.
Yeah, remember how I talked about that last week?
Yes, indeed.
Where I was a little bit concerned about the Switch Lite because people were reporting, hey, the Joy-Con, the joysticks kind of wear out and they start drifting. Essentially, they wear out to the point where the internal tension on them, even though I'm not certain exactly how that tension is supplied. Sometimes it's just resistance of the joystick. Sometimes it's springs. Sometimes it's just rubber bands on cheap ones. Wears out to the point where it gets past the dead zone. I was wrong on thinking that it was essentially wearing down the plastic to create an abrasive in it. It sounds like nobody really knows 100% sure why it's happening, at least outside of Nintendo. And there's a class action lawsuit going on, and there has been some late breaking news that Nintendo has recently released a memo that's instructing customer support to fix the Joy-Con drift. Before this, they were instructing people that had it to go to the customer support and pay essentially the same price as a new Joy-Con to go get that repaired. Oh, and has a 2-week turnaround as well. So, a little troubling whenever you're considering, the Switch Lite wouldn't have the ability to swap these out.
Yeah, you'd have to send the whole thing in for, repairs, but there's no way to, like, all of your data and everything is stored directly on the device. There's no way to pull it off.
Not 100% true. Remember, if you pay for their online service, they offer cloud saves for some games.
Yeah, I was going to say, for some games, that's not all games, so even that's not a solution.
Because Nintendo just has to be Nintendo, right? Nintendo
ended up...
I think it's fair to say Nintendo has pretty solid software, but hardware is either weird or has some sort of issue. And it's been this way for a long time now.
Yeah, Nintendo definitely solid software. Most of their games, at least...
First party.
Yeah,
the third party, especially in the Wii era, just were turning into shovelware.
Yeah, but I mean, they're very good, very solid. Many of them excellent. But when it comes to their hardware, like a lot of their hardware is genuinely excellent, like in terms of like technical, like what they're able to pull off with a very budget oriented console setup. But they do things very weird, and they've had a long history of that. You know, like, one of the ones that springs to my mind the most is, like, the N64 controller, just how weird and wacky that thing is.
What, you don't have three hands?
No, you know, when you know it, I just so happen to not have three hands.
I'm actually surprised. Actually, I can't say this is 100% not, but I'm surprised that there's not like a N64 game where it's a local co-op where it's more than one person on a single controller. Now that I think about it. Almost how Brothers A Tale of Two Sons is a single-player multiplayer, or single-player co-op, where it's split the controller between the two characters. I just had that thought. It made me wonder, is there an N64 game, some sort of challenge gameplay, where the game is controlled by, let's say, two people, maybe three, splitting the N64 controller into essentially sections. I don't think there is, but that would have been an interesting way to use the hardware, huh?
Yeah. I'm trying to Google that right now. I'm not coming up with anything, but my wording could be wrong.
I don't think there is. Because pretty much whenever control schemes were set up for the game, it used the D-pad or the joystick or the thumbstick, never both.
Yeah, or if it used both, typically the thumbstick was the control method and the D-pad just functioned as additional buttons.
Mm-hmm. Well, now we need to go back in time and develop an N64 game. Hey, maybe we could create a new good timeline, right?
Maybe. Influence a lot of actions as much as possible going forward.
Go kill a few people, buy some stock, Typical time traveler stuff. It just kind of, I kind of just thought of that off the top of my head, but even not counting the N64 controller, or the Wii controller, or the Wiimote, it was a weird thing that, just happened to work well enough that, it got traction with non-gamers and became a huge success. But then the Wii U essentially was a tablet. And, and a lot of games just did not make good use of that second screen experience.
No.
The GameCube had the mini discs and also a weird controller as well.
Yeah, but the GameCube controller was closer to a, I don't know, air quotes, normal controller.
The GameCube controller was what would happen if you left an original Xbox controller in the hot zone in Chernobyl, and it just mutated for a while.
Yeah.
Of course, it would be begging for death, but that's beside the point. I mean, even the original NES, it had a hardware issue with its contacts because they did this weird zero force contact system in it, essentially trying to distance themselves away from the traditional the traditional format of game cartridges at the time, and wanted to have the games loaded in like a VCR. And because of how they set up the system, where all the contact pins inside it were bent, so whatever you put in the cartridge and then push down on it, all the pins would put force on the contacts on the cartridge. Over time, the essentially the bending of those pins would, they would lose their memory essentially, or the springiness of them would go away.
Yeah.
So you would start getting failures there. So even in the original Nintendo console, there was a hardware issue because they had to be doing something different. So Nintendo has a long history of little fiddly hardware things, and even the N64 gamepad had a joystick or thumbstick issue. So, this is even a new thing. It's just, it's at the point now where Nintendo buried their head in the sand for so long about this issue that it came to a class action lawsuit that they're quickly trying to rectify because threat of litigation. Oh shit, we need to do something now, right?
Yeah, I mean that's unfortunately what it takes most of the time to push companies into actually doing something is the threat of litigation.
Yeah, and not even doing the right thing. It's just do something, right?
Yeah. Make it look like we give a damn. I'm not quite as cynical on Nintendo as I am about a lot of other companies about this stuff.
Well, to be fair, that's a low bar.
That's fair. Nintendo has been making what I feel like are more mistakes here recently. They might just be in a little bit of a slump. I'm not going to write them off to being, a really shitty, air quotes, AAA company at this point, but it seems like they've been in the news a few times over the last couple of years with, big issues or things that they're having to deal with.
Yeah, that makes me, like I said, really hesitant about the Nintendo Switch Lite. And even they announced that there's a new version of the mainline Switch coming out with better battery life, so we're going to have to see just what they change on that. Or are they going to do some sort of design change in the JoyCons to fix whatever issue this is?
Good question. I don't know. I think I mentioned this before. I'm definitely interested in the Switch Lite because all I'm really care about is the portability of it, and I would use it 100% like a handheld portable console. And the fact that it's less expensive. Like, I know the screen's smaller, it's all one piece, stuff like that, but it's cheaper and is, 100% portable, so I don't currently own a Switch. I've talked about getting one a couple of times. The times have been right for it, but maybe, who knows, maybe this year. Might be some decent bundles for the holidays with it, so we'll see. Obviously, if I get it, I'll use it and report back. So I'm going to stop looking now. I have been looking for what you mentioned, that idea of a
hey, we had a random
experience.
pitch a game, huh?
Yeah. I might dig into it some more later. I also might just forget after I go to sleep and wake up tomorrow. So, no promises. But if I do find something, I will report back on that as well. Next news topic. Grand Theft Auto 5 update adds a casino that can be played with real money.
Oh boy, right?
Yeah.
Now some caveats on this is that there is a limit to the amount of money you could buy in with in a particular time frame, but it's still allowing people to buy in.
Well, I thought that the buy-in limit was only if you were using the in-game currency, because it translates at a rate of $1 to one chip at the casino that you can buy into every in-game day, which is an hour.
Yeah, which I think that's where they're going with this, is the fact that shark cards exist, and that's the thing. Is that anytime that they put in anything, kind of questionable about, the fact that you could buy in with real money to get in-game currency and then use that currency to gamble, starts to set up some red flags, right?
Oh, yeah. But, I 100% expect them to sell specific casino shark cards where you can get all that money dumped at once into your, chip count or casino bank account or however that works specifically in-game. Yeah, I 100% expect that.
Yeah, and also some countries are having it where this entire update is essentially blocked. It's essentially a big building and that's it. You're not able to buy in the chips to be able to go in, and the only way to use the content is to buy into the chips with the in-game money, which, like I said, as far as I could tell, I could be wrong on this because I haven't played GTA Online. I haven't played GTA 5, period, so I could be wrong on this. So if I'm wrong, please send in a correction at vglpodcast@gmail.com or VGLpodcast on Twitter, because I want that correction. But yeah, it looks like essentially $10 a day is the maximum that you can buy in with, which, yeah, doesn't sound like a lot, but yeah, $10 a day adds up. Right?
Yeah.
Especially with somebody that has, an addiction to gambling to begin with, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you have a gambling addiction and you go the max every day, that's $70 a week, which is... My brain is not wanting to do math. Where's my calculator?
3,600 a day, or 3,600 a year. Sorry.
Yeah.
So and some change, 3,640.
So you could spend that, just in a year on the in-game gambling.
That's assuming, of course, that you don't, that you're losing everything and you're buying the maximum, of course, because there is the chance that you're winning some money in this as well. But this is the problem I have with hardcore gambling in a game situation. Yes, I realize GTA is a mature rated game. Kids should not be playing it. So I'm not even going with the think of the children aspect here. One of the most heavily regulated industries in America is the gambling industry.
Yeah.
And they hard enforce win percentages. They hard enforce house advantage. It's the Wild West when I realize it's not the Wild West. That's a different game. But, sorry. But it is the Wild West when it comes to that on gaming. Or I should say gaming and video games, because that's what they use the term gaming for gambling. And we've already seen, with loot boxes where they'll tweak the odds. So if you're having a very long string of bad luck, some games will kind of bump up the chance of getting something really good to keep you going, to get the Skinner box to pay out a little bit sooner, right?
Yeah.
And gambling requires a level of trust I do not have in the gaming industry, period. Especially whenever real money starts entering it.
Yeah. I agree 100% on that one. This is a kind of a segue as well. Well, yeah, it's that too. But this is also kind of a segue to something because the British had been doing
there's actually a link in this.
Yeah, but the British had been doing an investigation into whether or not loot boxes were gambling a couple of weeks ago. When EA's representatives were talking about air quotes surprise mechanics.
It's the surprise mechanic.
Yeah, this is that investigation. And the article that they linked to doesn't quite have all the details that Jim Sterling talked about in his YouTube video, and I think he had links to some stuff in there. Basically, they said that loot boxes don't qualify as gambling under current UK law, specifically because there's no physical payout. You don't get real money, you don't get some kind of real item or whatever, and that's the only thing that separates it from gambling based on current UK law.
And there's already a petition to close that loophole, by the way.
Yeah, which technically this is a victory for the gaming industry, but I think it highlights what we have said and what many others have said. Like, this is gambling in everything except, legally recognized name. Like, they're utilizing all of the same tricks, psychological tricks and motivators to prey on people's, addictive tendencies and things like that. And they're basically getting away with it because of a loophole in law. And specifically, I don't think this part was mentioned in the article, but it does say it. Jim does quote it in his video on his channel. Says that, this doesn't meet the law, but it is troubling, and we need to look into corrective action or an oversight committee, something like a next step that they were proposing happen to bring this under some kind of umbrella, because they acknowledge, like, all of this is troubling. And it basically fits the standard for what they call a lottery, instead of gambling. Which, if you ask me, like, a lottery is just a different type of gambling, but, that's splitting hairs. But, regardless...
A lottery is just worse odds for gambling.
Yeah. So, this is probably going to be touted by a lot of, the ESA and the... What is it over in Europe? Peggy? Or is Peggy the government rating?
I'm actually not 100% certain right now.
Whatever the ESA's European equivalent is, and by a lot of these companies, is like, aha, a win. See, they said that it wasn't gambling. And, it is a short-term victory, but it's just highlighting how blurry the line is.
Yeah, but they also, at least on the article linked from the GTA 5 article, talks about how Valve should do more to close down the secondary market as well. Because, that's the problem, right?
That, I think, is definitely part of the problem, but it's not the whole problem. I think it's more of a symptom of the problem, actually, as opposed to the problem itself.
The skinominy?
Yeah. And part of dealing with things is, you treat the symptoms, but you also have to treat the underlying cause as well. And in this case, loot boxes are gambling. So, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, some other comments I saw talked about how it wasn't the fact that there wasn't a payout, but also I didn't do a deep enough dive on it because I didn't see the article until just when we were talking. Some people were talking about how it also doesn't meet the requirements for gambling in certain areas because there's not a loss. So does that mean casinos there are start going to really racking up on plastic spiders? Because if you get something, it's certainly not gambling, right?
Yeah, because you're not losing everything. You might have just bought a $10,000 plastic spider, but you got something.
What are you talking about? If you get 10,000 plastic spiders for that.
I suppose that would still be a net gain for the casino, but they would definitely not gain as much.
Let's see. How much is a gross of plastic spiders? Let's see. One gross of plastic spiders is $13 retail. Oh, these are the fancy jumping ones. So yeah, that's a $5 buy-in. I'm having too much fun. What can I say?
The $5 tables are the really shitty, cheap tables in Vegas. I mean, those were my favorite tables to play at. The one time I've been to Vegas, a lot of interesting people there, and you could just sit and drink
it's the $50 buy-in that gets the plastic jumping spiders.
Yeah.
Let's see, plastic spiders. Let's see. Okay, here's 100 plastic spiders for $7. I have a real temptation to get this for April Fool's Day. Just dumping on my neighbor.
No,
and then I would not
evil.
The bucket over the door, but instead of water, it's plastic spiders. You'd probably be able to hear her from there.
I'm like, my anxiety's shooting up just hearing you talk about this. I don't like spiders. That's one of the only things that I really like. Spiders and clowns are like my things that I'm like, no, thank you.
Okay, now how much is 100 little plastic noses? Sorry.
I'm just shaking my head.
Which is great for an audio podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
Ooh, I could go cheaper. 100 plastic spiders for $1. $1.46. There we go. eBay is the way, right?
Yeah, eBay's pretty swell. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing, going back to what the news topic, this whole thing is just like, honestly, it feels kind of like a fuck you, like with the GTA casino. Just feels like a fuck you in the face of all of this.
I understand that casinos have a place in the GTA series. They've been in the GTA games before, but they've never been multiplayer with the ability to buy in with real cash, and that's really the distinguishing factor here to me. Is that it's one thing to go into San Andreas and go shoot a bunch of people for in-game cash, and then go blow it all on blackjack. But it's another one whenever you're buying shark cards and you're dropping $10 a day on casino chips. It just seems, it seems like there's a real distinction of shittiness there.
Yeah, it's just different than there being just like gambling you can go do in game. Like if you could just go play, blackjack or Texas Hold'em or any number of other games as like a mini game, that's one thing, and it just only utilizes some real game, in-game currency or whatever.
Yeah,
part of me single player mode, and
part of me wonders just how much of this was a scrapped original single player content that they reworked for multiplayer, because they originally supposedly had a lot of single player content planned, and GTA Online was just kind of a weird experiment that they didn't really expect much out of.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Possibly could be, a lot of it or all of it that comes out.
Yeah, and this was also, was this Brucey that came back with the GTA casino?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see if there was a specific character.
I know Gay Tony was the previous one. Let's see. I'm just seeing if I can find it real quick. Yeah, Brucey. Because Brucey.
I like Brucey.
Brucey is definitely the one that I would consider with a casino, right?
Yeah, actually, that would fit.
Well, it's being a little sarcastic there. I mean, I would have put like Roman, being in debt to a casino.
Roman would probably be the best choice, but I could see Brucey doing it.
Well, maybe there was also, that particularly, the ending of GTA 4, possibly, Roman not being around.
Yeah, depending on the ending that you get.
Yeah, especially depending on how much you liked Roman.
He was annoying, but I liked Roman overall.
If Roman could just shut the ever-living fuck up occasionally, right?
Yeah. Hey, it's your cousin. Fuck off, Roman. I'm killing hookers. Don't leave me alone.
And now I have the Miracles Sound song coming up.
Ooh, Nico, it's your cousin. Not my favorite one of his songs, so I don't know all of it or as much of it, but yeah, I can kind of hear it starting to play in my head.
It's an earworm. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So should we get away from this before we get a copyright strike from Miracle Sound? Obviously not due to your performance, because I don't think any AI would be able to recognize that as a human singing.
It's just screeching noises. Yeah, we'll move on to our last news topic.
We'll get in trouble for having injuries on the podcast. It sounded like there was a seal that was being beaten to death. No, that was just Jared singing.
So, Rare talks Sea of Thieves, upcoming pets, and microtransaction store.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one. And because it's Sea of Thieves, it's not as clear-cut to me on just my thoughts on this. So, way back when Sea of Thieves launched, and it's extremely bare-bones state, let's be perfectly honest, one of the things they planned on releasing not long afterwards was a cosmetic store. Well, turns out launching a game in a bare-bones state kind of pisses people off. So they had to put back the store and put it back, and it looks like they're now just getting around to it. But the landscape has kind of changed, and I'm not just talking about games as a service becoming kind of the standard, and Sea of Thieves supposedly getting a fair amount of gameplay. but also the fact that it's an Xbox Game Pass game now, or at least on the PC. I'm not sure if it is on the console as well.
Yeah, it is on console. It was one of the ones that they were like, I think that the Sea of Thieves came out the same time they debuted the Game Pass service.
Yeah, I remember. That's right. You got the Game Pass in order to try it for a month.
Yeah.
And you were highly disappointed.
Yeah.
But it's
very sad.
But it makes me wonder just where where microtransactions are going to go if we start seeing more of these Netflix of games popping up, where especially if they use the Netflix model of all the games on the pass gets an equal cut or a predetermined cut of the revenue, or a predetermined amount of money. Are we going to see where microtransactions make a little bit more sense in a AAA game because the majority of the players are essentially subscribers instead of buyers? It's an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, is it has this weird feeling about it because this is not something that has been a thing on PC gaming outside of like the last year or two. And it's still relatively new that I haven't really considered it all that much.
Yeah. On the one hand, I kind of get it, because then they're not free to play games in that sense, because you're still paying a subscription to get access to the games, but you're also not paying, specifically for the games. So in one way, it makes more sense to me. But on the other hand, like for, particularly for something like Microsoft and their Game Pass, it's like, well, I mean, you're a Microsoft first party title that has put you on the Game Pass as a way to, keep player numbers up and things like that. So, I mean, Microsoft is still paying you for this. It's not like you're doing it for free. I don't know. I might understand it a little bit.
But Sea of Thieves is a Microsoft published. It's not Microsoft in-house, is it? Is Rare Microsoft in-house?
I'm pretty positive Microsoft bought Rare a few years ago, and they're one of their first-party developers.
I can't recall, so I'm happy to go double-check that. Let's see, Rare Company. Yeah, in 2002, actually.
I thought the acquisition was much more recent, but I guess not. But yeah, so Microsoft has owned Rare since 2002.
Well, that's why Rare dropped off the map for me. Rare focused on the Kinect from 2009 to 2014.
I guess that's why it feels like that, in the last few years is when Rare was, in my mind, bought and made a comeback by Microsoft. But Microsoft has owned them for a long time, and they're just letting them, or having them make games again instead of Kinect stuff.
Yeah, let's see. List of video games developed by Rare and year of release. Sea of Thieves. Well, was their last one last year? Battletoads coming up is a Rare game. Let's see, Rare Replay, Kinect, Killer Instinct. So
Killer Instinct was good, actually.
Yeah, I'm not a fighting game guy, but that's 2013. Kinect Sports Season 2, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which was...
Holy shit, Rare made Viva Pinata! I love Viva Pinata! I didn't know that.
It's kind of a shame Viva Pinata kind of just died off, huh? Because there was a lot of places to go with that.
Yeah. Oh, I love Viva Pinata so much. I'm sorry for more screeching, but I'm not sorry.
Well, at least it wasn't singing this time.
And then they did Perfect Dark Zero and Cameo. Cameo was good. Perfect Dark Zero was eh.
Well, they did GoldenEye, of course.
Yeah, I'm mostly just looking at the Microsoft era.
Star Fox Adventures, which was GameCube. That was just before they got bought out.
Star Fox Adventures was really good too.
Yeah, it's just looks like it's after like 2007. They started really focusing on Kinect stuff. And they haven't really... Well, let's put it this way. In the last 10 years, they've released 3 games on PC. Killer Instinct in 2013, Sea of Thieves, and upcoming Battletoads. Those are the 3 games in the last decade for PC. So that's why they fell off the map to me.
Yeah. They spent a long time on Sea of Thieves. I heard some insider reports from, some contractors and developers that left the studio mid-production that they got like 2 years into making it, but it like hadn't really shaped up into anything, like almost like an Anthem story. And so about a year before release,
that rare magic.
They almost completely restarted development. And that's one of the reasons why it came out such a mess.
2015, Sea of Thieves was announced at a Microsoft Xbox press conference at E3 2015. Yes, I realize we covered E3 2015. It was a really bare bones release or showing at that point.
Did we do 2015?
Yeah.
I think that was the year before we started the show. Because we've done 3 E3s, so that would be 2017 to 2018.
Oh, no, gameplay was first shown at 2016. They did just announced what it was in 2015. So, yeah, 2016 was the first time they showed gameplay. And that was the cringy one with all the influencers, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But
it was originally scheduled to release in 2017. Development started in 2014 with the idea of group shared narratives, which Greg Miles of Rare described as a clumsy, tilted concept that envisioned a group type of multiplayer where players would create experiences that are entertaining to watch. So, hey, Twitch before Twitch, right?
Yeah. So, back to the thrust or the general idea of the news topic about them having a microtransaction store. I don't like it. I don't care if they're on a subscription-based service. Like, I've been sitting here thinking about it. We talked about it. I don't like it. Like, if this was some kind of third-party subscription service, it might make a little more sense to me. Like, they would have something in their contract, but, Rare, and Sea of Thieves was developed, produced, owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft is the streaming service where you can get it. So, I don't like the idea of that. The more we've talked about it, I don't like it.
But if it was third party, you wouldn't have this big a problem?
I wouldn't have as much of an issue with it, because the thing is, if it was a third party service that they were a part of, and then them having the microtransaction store, like, they're not getting the same kind of backing. Like, that's the thing. With this being all in-house Microsoft stuff, they're getting their backing, their funding from Microsoft, or at least a big portion of it. So, with accounting and, number shuffling and all that jazz, it could look like they've got a loss without the microtransactions. But with Microsoft being their parent company, Microsoft can be positioning this to be a loss leader to promote their service. And having the microtransactions in the store in it as well feels like, double dipping or, just like an
see, if they don't do this, they leave money on the table.
Yeah, I know. All of them can't be happy with making the oodles of money that they do make. They have to make every single cent, or everything's performing below expectations.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's kind of a shitty thing, huh?
Yeah, if it was a third-party service where they weren't being subsidized by the service provider, I could understand.
Well, that's assuming that they are being subsidized. That's the thing, is that we don't know the agreements behind the scenes.
I suppose not, but like I said, Microsoft owns them, so...
Yeah, but they are also still treated as a separate company under the Microsoft umbrella, as far as I could tell. They're off doing their own thing as well, so it really depends just on the corporate relationship going on. I realize I'm playing devil's advocate here, but
that's fine.
But a lot of it is a lot of question marks. How are they being subsidized, if they're being subsidized? If it's based on people downloading the game and playing it to boost the player numbers for the people buying in or buying expansions or whatever for that game, then that's one thing. Other than them getting the set whatever And if they sell an expansion, great. If not, oh well. That's your tough luck.
Yeah.
Part of me wonders if for a subscription like Game Pass or Uplay Plus or Origin Access, if these games start doing a lot more microtransactions, I wonder if sooner or later the subscriptions give some sort of premium currency as a bonus to try to nudge people into spending these microtransactions. Like every month you get, like 1,000 Microsoft bucks or something that is good on any of their games on the service as a microtransaction payment. Sort of how mobile games do a premium currency trickle to try to warm you to doing this.
Yeah.
That psychological trick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure they could do that. I personally don't feel like they would have to. Like, as long as the value for the subscription service is good enough, or at least where I personally feel like it's good enough, then I don't need any additional incentives. I'm basically just getting a bunch of games for, effectively a very low overall price, and that's good enough for me. But I could totally see them doing that to incentivize people to stay. I mean, Microsoft used to have Microsoft points before they just converted it to, flat currency.
Yeah, and the Microsoft points was always
that system.
Very insidious, where everything was priced in such a way that it was almost impossible to completely cash out. And then you had that sunk cost fallacy of, well, I have this much if I buy another card, right?
Yeah. I mean, I used to do that back when I played a lot more Xbox titles. And even with the currency, you can't just have a credit card or a PayPal attached now, and you can just buy it instead of having to buy points. But you can still buy the currency to load into your account, and then you kind of run into the same thing.
Yeah, I was more
but it's
just
not
thinking
as bad
out loud,
as
trying to warn people to the idea of having these microtransactions. Because there is a backlash whenever a game like this announces microtransactions, especially ones that aren't on a subscription service where, it's a $60 buy-in, or hell, a lot of times it's even more now whenever you start getting into special editions and season passes and everything.
Yeah.
But the subscription angle is a new one that is in a weird spot right now for PC gaming. So, that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up, really. It was just, it's a different take on this.
Indeed. I was just thinking for a second if I had any final points, but I think I have made all of my points. So,
oh my,
we can go ahead and scoot on over to Community Corner.
Yeah, no mail that I saw. Well, outside the random Chinese spam.
Right, I did not see any either. But I just want to mention real quick, the community game night list is pinned. Oh, one moment. Had to cough there for a second. The community game night list is pinned in the general chat section. It's one of only 3 pins. The others being stuff related to the Minecraft server, which I think people still play on. But you can go look at the schedule there. This coming week,
you're definitely going to have to want to click on that because the actual message doesn't get updated as the list gets updated, which is annoying. So if you just click on the pin and you see date and game, and it shows the last one being Off-World Trading Company on the list when there's another one that's been added.
Yeah, and there probably will be some more added soon. You can feel free to suggest a game. Try and pick ones that multiple people in the community have. Not everybody has to have the same game. We don't all have the same games, but try and pick games that multiple people have in the community. If you want to suggest something, I know several of us have Game Pass. If you also have Game Pass and would like to suggest a game on that, and then other libraries other than Steam can count, obviously, but it is a little more difficult to know what games everyone has that aren't on Steam, just because Steam has got that handy dandy feature where you can see who on your friends list has a game.
Yeah, I would say Twitch Prime, even though I'm not sure if there's been any big multiplayer games on Twitch Prime.
Yeah, that's a possible suggestion. Also, something, it doesn't have to be on any of those sorts of game launchers or whatever. Mm-hmm. If there's, for example, an MMO or a particular free-to-play game that you're interested in that isn't on Steam or something like that, and you would like to suggest that, I don't want you to hesitate with any suggestions. If it's something that's a little more iffy and not like, oh yeah, absolutely, we can put that on the list. Because the things that have been suggested have been like, oh yeah, totally, that's going to go on the list because that makes sense. But if it's not within that, we can discuss it, amongst the community members and kind of be democratic about it. But I just wanted to bring that up. We'll probably mention every week just what the next one's going to be, just so everyone's on the same page. But this coming week, I will be gone, so I just went ahead and called it. I mean, if you guys want to get together and do something, knock yourselves out. I will be returning from my trip to Mississippi, and I will be home Monday night unless there is some kind of issue with my travel, which fingers crossed there won't be. But I'm going to be tired and needing to get ready for work and things the next day, so I'm just planning on not being around Monday night.
Yeah, and we're accounting for travel sickness because this is Jared, of course. So yeah, we're not going to record next week, which is pushing the game club back a week, which honestly is not a bad thing.
No, we've both had struggles with Final Fantasy Tactics.
Well, I had my entire emulator had to get reinstalled.
I haven't had issues with my emulator, at least so far. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that jazz. But actually playing it has been a bit more of a drag than I thought it would be. But that is definitely dipping way into potential game club discussion, so I will save that for next time. Mm-hmm. We'll be running a Franken episode next week, which has already been edited and is ready to go. We've got a lot of content to pull from for those Franken episodes because we haven't missed an episode in a while, so we've had a lot building up. So it's good to use some of it.
In other words, you're saying we should be lazy every once in a while?
Yeah, we should be lazy. But no, I'm actually very pleased with this one. There's some fun discussion between the two of us about, not gaming things. Several fairly long discussions.
About non-gaming things, obviously.
Indeed. So I'm excited about that. But I think that's all for Community Corner in terms of things to discuss.
So, time for some music?
Indeed. Let me guess. You have something right away.
Well, I have my Discovery queue up, so of course I do, right?
Okay, go for it.
So, I have Swords and Souls Never Seen. This is published by Armor Games. I don't know Soul Game Studios, but Armor Games has done... Well, let me go double check that. They've done a fair amount on Steam, so some decent stuff. This is a single-player turn-based combat with looks like some sort of almost mobile-style Fruit Ninja stuff going on, as well as mini-games. It's weird. It looks like a beat-em-up almost, even though I don't see it listed in the tags as that. But, tags can be deceiving, of course. It released, when did this release? It released yesterday. I mean, it has an interesting art style. It has almost a Rayman feel to it, where the hands and feet are disconnected.
Yeah.
It's just it looks like a weird amalgamation of different things. Never Seen as a unique RPG where leveling up takes skill. Create, train, and upgrade your characters as you please. Discover the Never Seen and its erratic locales and battle across the lands to foil enemies. An enemy witch's plans. So, RPG. And has some pretty good reviews overall. So, there you go. Something a little weird to start off with. You have something weird?
Gotcha. Yeah, I got one. I don't know if you'd call this weird or not. It's called Gloomhaven. This is based on a board game, which have seen before. I've never played it, but I've seen it. It's a tactical hex, sort of grid-based, turn-based game. It says that there's tactical RPG and dungeon crawling sections. But it's a fantasy RPG style game. Got some body horror-esque elements to it if it draws pretty heavily from the board game. Although it does look a little bit brighter and shinier than the board game makes it out to be. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I do like things that are a little bit more vibrant, and you can do a lot of interesting things with that if you contrast it to the actual board game itself. This developer that makes it did the Fable Fortune CCG, free-to-play CCG that came out last year. I don't know if that's the only thing it says that they've done. The devs could obviously have more experience with other things, but as a dev studio, that is what they have made. So, I've never actually played the Fable Fortune game, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that they were the team that made that. But this looks pretty good. It's in early access right now, set to develop throughout the rest of 2019. So I'm gonna keep my eye on it, see if I can get a review key. I mean, I wouldn't mind paying for it, but if I can get it for free, why would I?
Well, I got something pretty interesting. Automa Chef. Essentially, remember Gunsmith a while back?
Yeah.
That with a cooking skin on it. It looks like a lot more customizable objects inside the game. So you are designing kitchens that automatically cook meals, which doesn't sound too interesting at first, but you're doing this via a series of conveyor belts, specialized equipment. But the trailer also shows some sort of code editing, so you're able to go in and change the equipment a lot more than you typically can on these type of games, which is an interesting twist on things. Top that off with a lot deeper, resource tree. I mean, just looking at some of this, for example, Jet Age meal. From one of the screenshots, you need a carrot, which gets cut into carrot slices for one part of the big salad. Then you need a bread slice, which probably is made by making bread and slicing it. Then you toast it, then you make croutons out of that, and that's put into the salad. Then you need 100 milliliters salad dressing. That's the big salad. Then for another portion of it, you need to make hot wings, which is raw chicken, and cutting it up, taking an egg, and egg contents. That's actually kind of funny. But then you bread the chicken, I'm assuming with breadcrumbs, probably from the toast. So it's a lot more involved than some of the other games of this genre, which is interesting. Looks like there's a few complaints about the UI, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely one to look for. It's published by Team 17. That's known for Worms. And my time in Portlandia as well. So, yeah, they have their pedigree with crafting games with that. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
Definitely interesting.
So I got another one. Night Call. I'm just going to read the blurb here. Friend, confidant, therapist, voyeur. As a cab driver working the Paris night shift, you are many things to different people. Your gift is getting people to talk, and in order to catch the serial killer who left you for dead, that's exactly what you'll need to do. I think I saw it at E3 last year, or at some gaming show.
I've seen this somewhere, but I'm blanking on where.
Yeah, it's got a noir aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Looks like some pretty mixed reviews, but there's not a lot of reviews.
Yeah, it looks like it's a non-linear mix of a sort of investigative story game, but also you have to balance like earning money as a cab driver so that you can pay your bills and stuff while you try and hunt down this serial killer.
Papers, Please
who
mixed
left you for
with
dead.
A detective story.
Yeah, looks really neat. So,
well,
all right.
I got an odd one. I gotta add this, even though I'm not sure about it. Biotope. A fish tank simulator.
Okay.
Biotope will be the most detailed and realistic aquarium simulator on the market. Biotope makes it possible to create complex aquarium ecosystems and simulate realistic life cycles of plants and fish. I mean, it's a very pretty game so far. I mean, it's not amazing graphics, but this could be something interesting if you like fish, but you're not able to, actually own a fish tank, because a fish tank is damn expensive. And it requires a lot of upkeep. So, I mean, it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's something different. Let's see, it's in early access. The early access phase will be at least half, but no longer than a year. So, probably, I would say early 2020 ballpark. Or early portion of 2020 is probably when it's going to be releasing out of early access. But yeah, $15. I mean, you can't get many fish out with that. Well, unless you're counting goldfish.
You can get a lot of goldfish for $15. So I got another one. I mean, unless the rest of my queue is shit, I'm 3 for 4 right now. So She Sees Red. This is an interactive live action movie, essentially. I don't know when the development of this was started, but I'm hoping to see a lot more of these after the success of Bandersnatch. When it released, was it earlier this year or late last year? I don't remember exactly when that came out, but that was in case you're unaware, that was the Black Mirror episode. That was a choose your own adventure released on Netflix. This is saying it's got 4 different endings and requires multiple playthroughs in order to get all of the endings and see all of the different video footage. So as long as the acting is good and the storytelling is good, I'm on board for stuff like this. It's $8, so that might be a little rich for some people's blood. But if you think about it compared to just like if you buy a movie, or rent an HD movie, that's around the cost of what that would be. So, that as long as it's done well, I could see that being about the right cost for it. If you're not into that sort of thing, then obviously it wouldn't be worth it to you. But it's neat. I like the idea of it, and I hope to see more things like this, combining the medium of sort of interactive experiences with traditional film and TV making. So
I got an interesting one. The Nowhere Prophet, a deck building pilgrimages simulator. Prepare your decks and go on a pilgrimage through the wasteland. Nowhere Prophet is a unique single-player card game. Travel across a randomly generated map and lead your followers in deep tactical combat. It's part of the No More Robots world, so there's quite a few games that's been set in this kind of mini universe. Matter of fact, Hypnospace Outlaw, which has popped up on the Discovery queue before, that like 90s web browser simulator, is part of this. So yeah, there's definitely some deep lore, and I do have a interesting spot for deck building games, particularly single player ones. So yeah, it looks interesting. I'm not sure how gameplay or how the combat really wraps up though. But yeah, it's a little bit expensive for it though. $23, base price $25. Looks like
gotcha.
Looks like it's full on summon units, and each unit has some sort of special ability to be able to use them at turns. Just looking at some of the gifts. Looks like there's some people talking about the AI not being all that good, though, which for a CCG is a definite problem at times. So yeah.
So I got another one. Missed Messages. This looks like a choose your own adventure type of game. It's free, so I'm gonna be checking this out between now and next time we record. But but it says, Goth Girlfriend's iPhone airdrops you. Do you accept or decline? A love horror story about life, death, and memes. A lot of the imagery in here looks like it could be bringing up some very serious stuff. Mental health related, relationship type stuff, potential suicide. Oh, it actually says down here, content warning. Contains visual elements / mentions of suicide and self-harm. So I am, I guess, a glutton for punishment, but I love
A little concerned
serious...
about gameplay. 15 to 30 minutes through. I think that will definitely... Oh, never mind. It's a free-to-play game.
I was going to say it's free.
Well, I scrolled right past it to look at reviews, and I saw that.
Yeah.
So I completely missed it's free to play, so there you go.
Yeah. Plus the art style looks very, very good.
Yeah,
This reminds me of...
it's like a watercolor.
Yeah, watercolors. It reminds me of that mobile game I played last year. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but it was like a dating lifestyle type game.
Where the boyfriend moves in and then you break up.
Yeah. Yeah, that one. I'm
Florence?
drawing a blank on the name right now. Florence, yes. Thank you.
It took me a moment to remember it.
That this gives me the same sort of feeling as I look at it. I'm just going to look and see who the developer is. Okay, it looks like this and something called Suppress is the only other thing that they've done.
Yeah, which is... same sort of art style, really.
Yeah, very different type of game, though. This is a 2D platformer, Suppressed.
2D stealth platformer, it looks like.
Reminds me, though, of the Scream, the art style.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Okay, but yeah, free to play, so I mean, I'm definitely going to check it out.
Yeah, I just scrolled right past the price because, typically, it's something, right?
Yeah.
So I got another one on the kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. Well, I don't know. There may be some self-harm involved. Founder's Fortune, a colony building simulator. A fantasy colony simulator focusing on creative building, colonist psychology, and base defense. So the psychology is the interesting one because that doesn't come up too often in these. There's a couple of times that it's very basic, just people being in bad moods, and it could cause a mental break in like RimWorld or something. But if they go full on with psychology, it could be interesting. But I'm not sure just how far they're wanting to go with this. But multi-floor buildings, a planned animal system, have proper relationships. Multiple islands and other factions are planned features. They're planning on leaving early access between September 2019 and September 2020. So, a year, right?
Yeah.
Looks like this is their first foray, at least on Steam. So, yeah. I mean, it has an odd art style. It looks, like... it's a very low detail, low poly art style, but it's not low poly, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It looks like they're like little plastic figures or something.
Sounds kind of cute, actually.
Yeah, it's rather cutesy, so if it could get dark, that would be interesting, that juxtaposition. Anyway, you got another one?
Yeah, Mini Galaxy. Mini Galaxy is a light strategy game set in space. We took all the parts of the 4X genre we love, tried to make them more accessible. It's easy to use, open to everyone, but we'll also scratch that itch for 4X fans.
I actually saw this come up on sale on mobile.
I was going to say, this looks like it could be a mobile title. It's $4.
Pretty sure it was. Yes, it's on mobile, and it's $2.
Okay. Probably check it out on mobile. But, I mean, this is something that interests me. I mean, I love 4X games, and accessible, on-the-go 4X. Sounds pretty good to me, so I'll check it out.
So, I got an arty-farty game, which I need to add to my links. Pretty much, I've skipped 2 so far, and one of them was Gloomhaven. So, you already had it. Vane. In a ruined desert, a strange golden dust transforms a free-spirited bird into a determined young child, setting off a chain of events that will reshape the world itself. It feels very Journey-esque, but it's not. Just looking at some of the gifs and some of the gameplay. Looks like some sort of physics-based puzzles in some of it. Some of it's just pure exploration. So it looks interesting. I'm not sure if the $20 price tag is worth it because of how long it is. I don't see any mention of that. And these type of games are, right? Let's see. Puzzle hints for idiots like me that get stuck is a negative. That being stuck on one stage of a puzzle for 10 plus minutes at a time. Hell, they could be a one-time thing only. So yeah, there's some people complaining about cameras as well. So it looks like it's an interesting one. I'm not sure about full price though. I would have to dive more into it. But it's interesting. And that's kind of the point of this, isn't it?
Indeed. So that's my entire queue. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So nearly 50%.
I got a RPG Maker one, so I'll just skip that. I have 3 remaining, and what the hell? I'll add this just because it's a different style of racing than what we usually see. MotoGP 19.
MotoGP is bike racing,
yep.
Right?
Motorcycles. Just because we don't really see that much on motorcycle racing. So it's not exactly the highest fidelity racing game I've seen, but does it look terrible? And motorcycle racing could offer some interesting gameplay compared to car racing. But it looks like there are some people that really don't like it, especially some of the physics possibly. Yeah, I mean, it's worth at least checking out. What was the price on that? I mean, it is a full price game though, so right?
Yeah.
Let's see. What in the hell is this? Huh. Okay, I'm putting this on here. I have no idea what to think about it because this is a little strange and it's very under-reviewed. But hey, Discovery, right?
Yes.
Elsinore, a time looping game set in the world of Shakespeare's Hamlet.
Huh.
Combines strong social simulation aspects, a dynamic story that reacts immediately to the player's decisions, and a world of diverse characters with secrets to uncover. Plus, it's Hamlet. So, there's something different for you, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't look terrible as well. I mean, first look, it looked like something out of like the 90s, but then I looked at it closer and it didn't look as low detailed as I thought it did. It's actually not bad looking. And it looks like, the full time loop mechanic is in play. One of the screenshots shows a full breakdown of the different characters and their different locations. So it sounds like the social aspect could alter the timeline, and who knows how that could play out. Essentially the butterfly effect, huh?
Yeah.
That is an interesting take on things. And my last one is Doom VR. So I'm just not even going to bother with that because, it's Doom, it's VR, it's very mixed reviews. Looks like there's some terrible support for Oculus, so yeah. And that is my cue.
Sweet.
Hey,
had a pretty good one this week.
Yeah, I had a pretty decent one myself.
Well,
I had
Discovery queue.
I had 8 out of 12.
I had 5, so pretty good. About 50%, a little less.
Yeah, mine's about ballpark. What it usually is.
Yep. But with that done, that means it's time for you, Rage, to hit up with the socials.
Well, I've been Caffeine Rage. You can find me on the YouTubes, Gaming with Caffeine Rage. You can find me on Twitter, Gaming with CR. Maybe someday you'll find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/caffeine_rage. And of course, you can find me on Steam How about that? Caffeine rates there as well. And you've been?
Gaming Psychologist. You can find me on the YouTubes by searching for Gaming Psychologist. Follow me on Twitter at JMA4707 or be my friend on Steam at JArthur4707.
And if you'll listen to them know exactly what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the password for this week is Cotton Candy. Cotton Candy. That's I'm pretty sure.
Did we get that in the recording? Did we get that in the recording?
I'm pretty sure, at least with Craig.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah. Turns out cotton candy does not make a good coffee. Who knew, right?
No. It sucks. My review's still not posted. I assume there's a review process it has to go through.
And probably
it's the middle of the night.
And probably filters out all the bad ones.
Yeah.
Actually, it'd be interesting to go to the other coffees and see. Does anybody get to post bad reviews?
Looking right now.
That's a little troubling, huh?
So far, nothing has got less than 4 stars. Right? Some of these have got a couple hundred reviews.
How about that? They're all 5 stars. Imagine that. And they all make the same spelling mistake as well.
Oh, here's one. That's a 1 star. This is about Santa's White Christmas, which I quite like. My experience was the same. Coffee was stale and washed out. Threw it away. Disappointing.
Well, I guess someone got coal instead.
Here's another 1 star. A couple of 2 stars. Just this one's got hundreds of reviews, so the ones that are bad aren't having much of an effect because of all of the ones that are good. Anyways, yeah. So there are some negative reviews.
And if you was to send us your negative reviews, I guess you could send them to vglpodcast@gmail.com, or you can just send your normal reviews or your letters, voicemails, game-related topics, or just tweet them to us at VGL Podcast on, well, how about that, the Twitter. Our lovely, lovely patrons have made this absolute madness possible. You can find more about that at patreon.com/VGL Podcast. And something else our lovely patrons have made possible is our Patreon page, vglpodcast.podbean.com, which hosts the show notes, the RSS feed, links to all our content, where you can find us in iTunes, Google Play, or your podcatcher of choice. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod, and our Discovery Queue music is Doobly Doo by the same artist. You can find his work at incompetech.com, and
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice. Bye now.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, maybe I'm just too much of a cheap ass when it comes to coffee to buy this stuff, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I like to buy nice coffee every once in a while. I don't buy it regularly. My mom, this is the brand of coffee she buys all the time. So, I just don't like the idea of spending $10+ on a 10-ounce bag of coffee.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even a full pound. I mean, if it was
yeah.
Which I realized, 10 ounces and a pound. Yeah, that's quite a bit of a difference. But damn, I mean, even my decent coffee that I use for cold brew, it's $6 for, I believe it's a 10-ounce bag. Which I realize, it's not that much of a difference, but it adds up.
Yeah. On my generic stuff that I just drink every day with no frills or anything, just caffeine is what I'm after, so I don't care as much about what it tastes like as long as it's not terrible.
Oh, no, it's 12-ounce bags that I get. Yeah, see, my cold brew is what I get the decent coffee for, I typically go Seattle's Best, which has been pretty decent for me.
Yeah.
But, get up, get your shit together. You have things to do. Folgers.
Dunkin' Donuts is my go-to for if I'm like, I want something that's pretty decent, but that's not like extravagant, like Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, the thing is
otherwise...
that Seattle's Best was a little bit cheaper, and it was available at the local grocery store in whole bean form for a while.
Yeah.
But when the store changed hands, essentially, from one brand to another, they have the ground coffee there at the same price, but not the whole bean. And I said it before, I don't see the point of buying pre-ground coffee at that premium price. It makes no damn sense to me.
Yeah. Katie buys 8 o'clock, and then she grinds her own beans. And I mean, I will too if I'm going to make a really nice cup of coffee. But most of the time, I'll just make a pot of coffee, a pot of coffee, and sip on it. I'll sip on that coffee all day, and it doesn't, it's gonna sit and it's gonna be reheated. Like, it doesn't need to be anything fancy. I just want some caffeine and some sort of general coffee flavor.
Yeah, see, for me, it's half a pot in the morning, or whatever my morning is, if I'm getting up late. Then if I need it, like tonight, I'll use the cold brew and either make a mocha with it, have an iced coffee, or summertime, and I now have a cheap-ass blender I thrifted, a frozen Frappuccino. But which sounds a lot more fancy than, well, I'll take a handful of ice and I put it in with a little bit of the cold brew.
I'm not sure if you can have a Frappuccino that's not frozen.
There's Frappuccino, then frozen Frappuccino.
Didn't know there was a difference.
Essentially, the difference is, how much ice.
Gotcha.
The frozen is essentially just crushed ice. Think of it as like a smoothie or a slushie.
Gotcha. I'm gonna get a vacuum brew kit. Like, I've got a French press, and then just do drip coffee. I'm not a big fan of percolated coffee. I've had it before. Not my favorite.
I haven't had percolated coffee in ages, and it's so damn hard to even find one, a percolator. It's kind of funny. Last time I went thrifting, there was this old guy, like in, I would guess, his 70s or 80s. And he was going to all the different thrift stores in Charleston looking for a percolator. And the scary thing? He was asking people, and there were so many people saying, "A what?"
Yeah, my grandmother still makes her coffee using a percolator. So that's where I've had it before. And then I do cold brewing. I haven't done cold brew in a while. I should make some cold brew.
I just put a new batch in
a while. But yeah, I want to get a vacuum brew kit as my sort of next coffee thing.
Something I've heard that's interesting is nitro coffee.
Nitro coffee? I don't know if I've heard of that before.
Well, I heard about it when I was looking at a whipped cream dispenser and saw people talking about nitro coffee with it, which is the nitrous oxide that's used to make whipped cream. It's fat soluble, and coffee has a little bit of fat in it, so it could get infused with it and make it a lighter texture. It doesn't make it like carbonated as far as I can tell, but yeah, that's a thing.
Interesting. If I ever find that, I'll have to try it.
Yeah, I was looking at whipped cream dispensers as a cheaper way to get essentially canned whipped cream and actually have some good choices. Because that's the thing, is that I don't really live in like what people call a food desert, but at the same time, I definitely have limited choice at my smaller local market. So it's toying around with some ideas, and it's always fun to have new gadgets, right?
Yeah, fun new toys, especially the toys that make coffee.
Yeah, which I actually don't have.
Can improve coffee.
Which actually I don't have a lot of toys that make coffee or improve coffee. I guess I'm gonna have to fix that. Well, I guess technically I do now because I did get that kitchen scale. So I like weigh out my beans now, so I'm consistent on the amount of coffee I make.
Yeah.
But that's more for baking and bread making. Pretty much as soon as I get rid of all these damn fruit flies, that hits her right on my last bench of bananas. I'm going to do some experimentation with bread. During my binge of the Great British Cooking Show, or Baking Show, they showed a interesting bread technique where you take part of the liquid and the flour. You essentially make a roux out of it and cook it partly. And it makes it where it's a lot more absorbent, but you really need a kitchen scale unless you want to do a lot of batches to kind of find the new equilibrium of the dish. So yeah, I'm going to be toying around with that when it's not game club time. Supposed to make a lot softer and more moist bread. So not good for everything, and can't like do it with a baguette or something.
I see. Well, I think that'll do it.
That's enough outro babble and enough of me talking about random bullshit.
Indeed. So I'm gonna say bye-bye.